In this school leader session, you're going to learn how to obtain reports to analyze performance data for the ANet math diagnostic data. As we go through these reports, there are certain goals that we want to accomplish. The first one is to know how to obtain reports for analyzing performance data, be able to determine how to use the data and other resources to systematically develop a plan to improve student performance, be able to articulate your data with other members of the PLC ILT and with each individual teacher. Set up periodic data meetings with other colleagues at your school in order to improve instruction and student performance at the school level. Questions you and your team members need to consider. First one being, what does the analysis of the data suggest about my school's current students' readiness for their grade level? What pattern are we seeing in student responses that we can use to improve instruction and student performance? What information from the data analysis is most useful in developing a school-wide plan for students with the most significant learning gaps? Do we need to provide remedial instruction or opportunities for unfinished learning within the context of new learning? And what does the school-wide data indicate? If warranted, based on the data, how can the school incorporate or adapt the curriculum based on information about students' strengths and weaknesses? And then as you go through the different reports, there's some other items that you need to consider or need to remember. First one is that data does provide a way to assess what students are learning and the extent to which students are making progress towards goals. Use data systematically in order to ask questions and gain insight about students' progress. Monitor continuous improvement and tailor instruction to the needs of each student. Your school's math team should be working collaboratively with the math coach. As someone with school level access, this is the page you should see. So it looks something like this. Now I am in as a Frank Sparks for Park Forest Middle School. So the reports that we're going to look at, you're going to see will be pertaining for Park Forest Middle School. Okay, so you'll see at the top you have dashboard, performance, standards, and so on. Before we go to performance, I want to mention this right-hand side. This right-hand side is where it says analyze performance data. This is important information for data meetings, and I did send a video out to your site coordinators, ANet coordinators, and the backups to send that video to teachers. So I did make a video where if you go to data meetings and you go to math right here, there's all kinds of information that you can get from this and from the printable reports. And I did send out a video for math teachers on this. So if you have not seen it, you may want to look at it as well before you conduct any PLC or ILT. Okay, so let's go back to the dashboard right here and let's look at performance. So I'm going to go to performance, and then on the left side you'll see this information. We just talked about the data meeting. So there is a video in data meeting that you do need as a instructional leader to look at. And the data meeting in that video was strictly for math because math was the only diagnostic that was taken online. The ELA was a reading fluency, so there's not going to be any reports within ANet for you to look at. Okay, so let's look at school performance over time by, I'm going to do course, teacher. I'm not going to pull up any students, but you can do it as well with students as well. Domain, standard, and network. If you go to school performance over time by teacher, if you click on teacher, you'll see this pop up. If you scroll the bottom, the first thing that you see are these bar graphs with information below it. So for Park Forest Middle School, the course here listed, the courses that were tested were 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade. So So that means that all the students took for diagnostic was a sixth grade diagnostic, a seventh grade diagnostic, and an eighth grade diagnostic. Okay. Now you'll see the next group here, it says average, and the next group says interim 5. Interim 5 is the diagnostic. That's interim 5. The average here means this. So you see where it says for school performance over time by? Okay, so when we take other interims like interim 1, then the average here will be the average of all the scores that are there. Okay, so when interim 1 becomes available, this average is going to change. But for right now, notice the sixth grade school average is the same as the sixth grade school for interim 5, which is the diagnostic. All right, now let me talk about network. So this network, you got to be careful. The network does not necessarily mean just EBR schools. So if you go to advanced filters right here, see where it says metric average network 43 of 43? That means that 43 right here that I have highlighted, 43, there were 43 schools in the United States, that took the diagnostic for grades 6, 7, and 8. That's what that means. Okay, so all of those 43 schools took the same diagnostic. All right, if you go to just sixth grade, the network changed. 39 schools took the sixth grade diagnostic. Go to seventh grade, 37 schools took the seventh grade diagnostic. Go to eighth grade, 32 schools took the eighth grade diagnostic. Okay, so just be aware that the network is not necessarily EBR schools, but you want the network to just be EBR schools. So here's what you're going to have to do. You're going to have to go to advanced filters right here. Go to advanced filters and notice I'm still at 8th grade. So if you want to do all courses, you can do that. All courses. Go to advanced filters and you'll notice different states here. So there's one school in California that took that diagnostic. There were maybe several. I can show you. There's one in Colorado that took that diagnostic. In Georgia there was one. In Illinois there was one. Let me go to Maryland. In Maryland there were 3 schools, and so on. Okay, so those are the schools in the United States that took that same diagnostic. All right, but you don't want those schools, right? So you just want your network to be EBR schools. So what I would do is I would go to, so let me go back and kind of show you this way. So I'm going to go to all filters to unselect all of these schools. Don't go to each one, just go up here, select all, then unselect, and now go to Louisiana, and then just select EBR. Now there are some other schools in Louisiana that took that same diagnostic. You'll see it here. So all these other schools in Louisiana took that same diagnostic, but you just want to put EBR schools. I want to also mention this. So remember, I am in Park Forest Middle, right? I'm in Park Forest Middle. When I went to select courses, Park Forest Middle only gave the 6th grade diagnostic, the 7th grade diagnostic, and the 8th grade diagnostic. So when I went to advanced filters right here, and let's see if I can get back to it. When I went to advanced filters and I unselect, let me go back and unselect it and go back to show Louisiana, you'll see only the schools that had that configuration, 6 through 8, or just a 6th grade, or like J.K. Haynes, Northeast Elementary is just a 6th grade in terms of middle school. All those schools are only the ones that show up. You don't see any elementary. You don't see any high schools listed except for Glen Oaks because they're 6 through 12. Istruma is 6 through 12. But you don't see anything like Woodlawn High School. So that's strictly 9 through 12. So only those schools will show up in your network. So I'm going to go ahead and select, and then you got to go all the way at the bottom and then update. Before I update though, you can also filter by school demographics and you can filter by network demographics. Notice by school demographics, you could filter by race, ethnicity, gender, free reduced lunch, EL learners, and then students supported by IEP or SPEDS. Okay? All right, so then I'm gonna go ahead and update, and then what happens is at the bottom, the network right here changes, way at the bottom. See that? Okay, so let's talk about what this means. We're gonna look at interim 5. So interim 5 is your diagnostic. The average here would be the average of all the assessments taken in ANet. That's what that would mean. So 6th grade at Park Forest Middle, notice all courses. So all courses, all 6th grade classes, all 6th grade classes are included here, all 7th grade classes, students, all A grade. So the school average for diagnostic, school average was 35% for 6th grade. See that network? It's in red, -9. So that means this. That means that the 6th grade school average right here is 9 points below EBR average. And I know it's EBR because I changed the network to just EBR. For 7th grade, the school average for the diagnostic was 26%. That is 8 points below the EBR average. And then for A grade is 23%, which is 11 points below the EBR average. So if you look at the 6th grade, so if Park Forest Middle, the average score was 35%, and they are 9 points below the network average, then that means that the EBR average was 44%. Okay, 35 plus 9 would be 44. Okay. All right, so that is what you get by course. And you could also filter by 6th grade. Don't forget to do update though. Update. Now, I want you to notice something. When you do update, it always defaults to every school in the United States. So you got to go to advanced filters just real quick. It's real quick. Just check it, uncheck, go to Louisiana, check EBR, scroll all the way down, and then update, and now your network average is now EBR. So if you filter by grade though, all you get is 6th grade. So probably best if you just filter by all courses and then update. But it defaults back to your to the network being all schools in the United States. You could, just to let you know, but you would have to do it for every one of these. You could create a filter. And let me just show you real quickly how to do that. So let's suppose for school performance over time by course, you want to create a filter for all courses. So you go to advanced filters. I'm sorry, you go to advanced filters first. Go to advanced filters. You're going to only select EBR schools. So do what I'm doing. Scroll all the way to the bottom. Update. And you see it's 21 now, right? So 21. So there are 21 schools in EBR that have the configuration grades 6 through 8. I need to rephrase that a little bit better. That gave the 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade diagnostic, or a combination of those. So we're going to go to Save Filters. Save Filters. And you see it still says 21, right? So we're going to just create a new filter. I'm just going to put those out. I'm going to put all courses just to indicate that this filter is for the all course filters. That's at 21 of 43. So I'm going to save it. And I'm going to go back to dashboard. Then I'm going to go back to performance. And I'm going to go back to school performance over time by course. And then watch what's going to happen. So right away, it defaults to the 43 schools. All right. So when you do get data for interim 1, there's going to be more than one thing in the drop down. So right now there's just math diagnostic because it's the only daily data you have. So if we update, okay, notice it defaults to this. We're going to go to saved filters. I'm going to go and find the filter I created. So that's those out all courses, and it defaults back to 21, and we get this. So you don't have to keep, now if you do it this way, you don't have to keep going to advanced filters and checking, unchecking, and then getting Louisiana. You could do it that way. But you have to do that for all of them though. So you have to do 6th grade, update. See, it defaults to 39 schools, so you have to create a filter for that, and if you want to do that as well. It's my experience that is just quicker just when you go to, let's say, 8th grade, update, instead of creating a filter, just go down here, check, uncheck, go to Louisiana, check EBR, scroll down, update, and then that's it. It's just as quick. All right. So, but that's what you're going to get through course, and you can print it out and you can put it in a spreadsheet. All right. So that's what school performance over time by course implies. All right. If you do it by teacher, so let's go by teacher. So by teacher, notice you have 2021 math. There's no ELA in there. And the reason there's no ELA in there is because there was no ELA diagnostic data that was done online. Now, once we do the interims, you are going to see ELA. For diagnostic, you only see math diagnostic, right? When we do the interims, you'll see the interims in there as well, and just drop down. When I go by teacher, remember doing by teacher, when I go to all courses, these were the only courses, the only tests that were taking, but the only diagnostic test that was taken: 6th grade diagnostic, 7th grade diagnostic, 8th grade diagnostic. Okay, now notice Park Forest Middle has Algebra 1, but Algebra 1 is not in here. It's not in here, and the reason being, the Algebra 1 students did not take the Algebra 1 test. They took the A grade test. But it is very important that for the interims, they take the Algebra 1 test. So as a school leader, it is very important that your test coordinators make sure that the students are taking the correct test. But that's why you don't see Algebra 1. Park Forest does not see Algebra 1 because the Algebra 1 students did not take the Algebra 1 test, they took the A grade test. But if Algebra 1 had been taken, it would have been listed here. Okay, so all right, so then let's see, we're on to teacher. So if you go to 8th grade and then update, only the 8th grade teacher shows up. See that? So Mr. Lockett teaches Algebra 1, but all you see is his 8th grade classes. So there are 2 8th grade classes for Mr. Lockett. There are 4 for Christian Rollins, and then there's a special ed math 8 class for the other teacher. Notice you have interim 1, interim 2, interim 3. We're not going to do interim 4. Interim 4, the materials will be available, but not online. And then the interim 5 is the diagnostic. Same thing. See the network? That includes all schools in the United States. So we're going to go to advanced filters. We're going to check, uncheck, and then go to Louisiana, click just EBR, and then update. And then now the network is just EBR schools. Okay, so let's talk about this. So remember, we're interested in the diagnostic. That's interim 1. The average here would be the average of everything that's taken once it's taken. So once the interim data comes in, it'll be the average of interim 1 and diagnostic. All right, so for Mr. Lockett's first class right here, section 3, the diagnostic average was 25%, and that is 9 points below the EBR average. The second class, it was 22%, 12 points below EBR average, and then the aggregate percent correct would be 23%, which is 10 points below the EBR average. And then the same thing for the other teachers. Okay, so that's how you read that. That is what you're going to get by teacher. That's what you're going to get by teacher. You could do it by 7th grade, update. Just know it always defaults to every school in the United States that took that same diagnostic. But these are the 7th grade teachers. All right, and then each of their sections and how each of those sections, how the students did on the diagnostic. All right, so for example, the Math 7 right here, those students in that class, the students in that class, um, on average, scored 21% correct on that test. All right, so that's teacher. Then you could go by domain. I'm not going to do student. The students are going to show up. So I'm going to go by domain. So if I go by domain, notice what you get. So you get the domain. You get uh, operations, algebraic thinking. Now remember, this is diagnostic. That's why you see fifth on here, fifth grade. Number and operations in base 10 and so on. Okay, and so there's the bar graphs, and then you have it in table form as well. You can see how it kind of looks too cluttered right here. You can, if you want to, go to all courses and just select sixth grade, and then all cycles. There's only one diagnostic, so you can keep it as all cycles. Update, and then notice it only lists those domains that were on the sixth grade diagnostic. So fifth grade standards, operations and algebraic thinking, number and operations in base 10, and so on. So for sixth grade at Park Forest Middle, the percent correct, the average percent correct for the Park Forest Middle for the school on operation algebraic thinking was 31%. On number and operations base 10, it was 41%. On number and operations and fractions, it was 28%. For geometry, it's 41%. All right, so that's what you get from that report. Now again, the network uh, includes, for this right here, includes all schools in the United States. So you would go to advanced filters, select all, unselect all, then go to Louisiana, and then click EBR, scroll all the way down, and update. Now you could keep doing those save filters, but you would have to do it for each time you change a different report here. All right. Okay, so that's what you can get. And again, you can print, and you can put in a spreadsheet. All right, and then for standard, this is what you're going to get. So let's go ahead and just do, let's say, sixth grade, and then just the sixth grade teachers will show up. So I'm going to just choose the first one, and I'm going to update. So these are the standards that were in the sixth grade diagnostic, which is fifth grade standards. And for this one teacher, this is how the students in that class performed on this standard. I'm sorry, this is going to be interim one. Well, the interim one and the average is the same because there's just one assessment. So let me just go to interim 5 though, which is the diagnostic. So 33%. The network, you got to be careful. The network is all schools in the United States. So let me just go ahead and quickly change this to just EBR. Go to Louisiana, check this, and then scroll all the way down, and then update. Okay, so now the network percentages change a little. Okay, so notice that for the diagnostic, which is interim 5, for the standard 5 NBT B6, the school, the class, this is just one teacher, all periods. For that teacher, all of the students in all of his periods, the average is 33%. And that is 23 points below the network average. If you look at this standard here, the one that's 5 NFB7B, notice the school average is 22. His classes, all of his classes, yes, all periods, all of this teacher's classes, the average was 22%, which is 1 point above the EBR average. All right. You can change it to, instead of saying all periods, let's say you want to look at just one of his classes. You got to update, and now this is just for that one class. So in that one class that we just picked, this teacher, for this standard here, 5 NBT B6, the class average was 50%, which is 5 points below the network average. For this class, for that standard here, 5 NFB7A, The class average, because I only chose one class, the class average for this teacher for 6th grade was 50%, which is 3 points above the EBR average. So EBR average for that standard was 47%. Okay, and so you have your major standards and you have your additional standards. Now, just remember you are dealing with interims. So in the on the state test measures, it can assess, well, or let me rephrase it. The state test does not assess every standard in the curriculum, every standard for that grade level. So when you are looking at this data, be aware that not all 5th grade standards were on that diagnostic test. Notice that these were the only major standards on that diagnostic test, and these were the only additional standards on that diagnostic test. So there are other standards in 5th grade. But for the most part, these major standards should be prerequisites for the 6th grade standards that are going to be learned for 6th grade. So these should be prerequisites for the 6th grade standards that are coming up. And so one of the questions was how you're going to reteach this. So when you get, there is a document that shows where these prerequisites are located at grade level. So once you get to that grade level standard and these are prerequisites, that should be intertwined, integrated within the instructional time. Okay, so just be aware about the number of standards on the diagnostic. And the same thing is true for the interim. Not all major standards are on those interim tests. So you got to keep that in mind. So when you do your monitoring, you got to keep in mind that there are some standards that were not assessed on those interims. And so you got to as a team, determine how you're going to monitor those standards that were not assessed, and even those standards that were assessed, because you got to keep monitoring their progress on those standards throughout the year. Okay, so that's what you can get through standards. And then you can do network. So if I go by network, then it's going to list just all the schools. All right, now notice there's Atlanta Unbound Academy. Well, that's not an EBR, right? So you got to go to Advanced Filters right here. Go to Advanced Filters, check, uncheck, go Louisiana, just select EBR, and scroll all the way down, update, and now only those schools in EBR showing up. But remember, it's only those schools that have that same configuration as Park Forest Middle, the ones that took that same test. Park Forest Middle took grade 6 diagnostic, grade 7 diagnostic, grade 8 diagnostic, and these schools did the same thing, or a combination of those. All right, so that's how you pull those reports. Now let's just look at one of them. So you have access, as a site leader, you have access to see, in terms of network, how the other schools did in comparison to yours. Now, this may not be very useful, this part here by network, but at least you could see in terms of overall how the other schools did in comparison to yourself. All right, so you'll see 6th grade, 7th grade, and 8th grade. And if Park Forest Middle had given the Algebra 1, you would see Algebra 1 as well. And then you would see some high schools listed. All right. So that is the school performance over time by course, teacher, domain, standard, and network. And I didn't do student because I didn't want any students' names showing up. But if you click on student, it's the same thing. You'll see students' names with some other information. Okay. All right. So in a previous session, I did talk about data. So ask your ANet math coordinator and backup to give you that video. The math teachers should be looking at that video. And then today, or right now, you're looking at school performance over time by course, teacher, domain, standard, and network. All right, so these are some reports that you could use in your ILTs and PLCs, and when working with teachers to improve performance and instruction. All right, so that is going to be the end of this session.